This entire episode will focus on and pivot with hypnosis. And I'm skeptical. And so you're going to hear to undo my skepticism. Because I've seen hypnosis acts with magicians on stage, and there's pageantry to it, and I don't know, but that's why we have you here. So first tell us, what is hypnosis, so we're all on the same page, please?
Hypnosis has been called believed in imagination. It's a state of highly focused attention. So it's like you're looking through the telephoto lens of a camera. What you see with great detail, but you dissociate. You're less aware of what's going on around you. You turn down the salience network that warns you that something else might happen that's more important. This intensity of focus is a key part of hypnosis, and we do it all the time to some extent. Right now, you gentlemen have sensations in your bodies touching these very comfortable chairs you're sitting in. Hopefully, you are not even aware of those sensations until I mentioned this. Is that right?
That's correct. You used a reference to a network. What network are you referring to? There's a neural network in your head?
It's a neural network in your head called the salience network. And so it's what fires off when you hear a loud noise and suddenly you think, is that a gunshot? What is it? I better pay attention to it. You're easily distracted when that network is activated. So in hypnosis, you turn that down. You allow yourself to give yourself to whatever it is you are focusing on, put outside of conscious awareness, things that might ordinarily be in consciousness. And you can try out being different. That's the third and most interesting part of hypnosis. So you had a producer who said she was on stage being hypnotized. You do things, the football coach will dance like a ballerina. It's what scares everybody about hypnosis. But it's actually a very important lesson that you can try out being different. You can suspend yourself. So it's highly focused attention, dissociation, and trying out being different.
So David, if Neil doesn't think it's a real thing, what can you say to him to make him understand in your mind that it is a real thing?
Why are you starting a fight between us? All I said was I was a little skeptical.
That's you don't believe in it.
No.
In essence, a test of being able to turn inward and alter the way your body feels and reacts.
Why are some people more hypnotizable than others? Because I know we're all different in a certain way, but there must be something in some part of the brain that is operating in a different way at a different scale.
That's right. And we know that one of the things that happens when you go into hypnosis is that you turn down activity in the dorsal part of the anterior cingulate cortex. The cingulate cortex is like a C on its ends in the middle of the center of your brain. And the front part, the dorsal part, is part of a network that fires off when there's a mismatch, when suddenly something's happening that shouldn't be happening. And you turn down activity in that part of the brain when you go into hypnosis. We know now that there are some genetic differences that are related to hypnotizability. So people who have a variant of the gene catechol-O-methyltransferase that metabolizes dopamine have a particular variant that has a moderate speed of metabolizing dopamine, turn out to be more hypnotizable than those who are heterozygous for methionine or valine and who either metabolize too quickly or too slow.
We know there are many drugs that influence dopamine in your brain. So is it possible to take a drug and make you more susceptible to being hypnotized?
We've just published a paper showing that you can use transcranial magnetic stimulation over a particular region of the brain, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and transiently increase hypnotizability a bit.
And just so people understand, when you say transcranial magnetic stimulation, you're talking about placing magnets over a person's head, and then what happens with those magnets in that process?
You can either stimulate or inhibit, depending on the frequency that you're administering. But you know that when electricity flows through a wire, there's a magnetic field circulating around the electricity.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For every electric current, there's an associated magnetic field, and vice versa.
And that's how we make electricity, by the way.
And that's why it's called electromagnetism.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
All right. Good. We're all agreed on that. So you can inhibit activity in that salience network, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, via the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. So you can slow down activity in that region, which is the same thing that happens when people go into hypnosis.
You're not putting people to sleep. So are you then manipulating the subconscious?
Manipulating is one word for it. I would say you're probably enhancing access to parts of people's thinking and experience that they don't ordinarily think about. And so you're getting them in a frame of mind where they're less likely to be guarded, they're less likely to want to protect themselves, and they're more likely to suspend their usual expectations about themselves. That's another part of the brain in the back of the cingulate cortex called the default mode network. And it's a part of the brain where when you're not working or thinking or doing anything else, and you're just reflecting on who you are, what am I, what do people think of me? What it does is it in a way imprisons you in the sense that you're going back to what your assumptions are about who you are, what you should be. And in hypnosis, you can inhibit activity in that region by activating the prefrontal cortex. And that inhibition is a kind of suspension of self. So when the football coach dances like a ballerina at one of those stage shows, I don't like making fun of people. I don't like making them look silly, but there is a message that he's able to let go of his usual assumptions about himself. So we suppress activity in hypnosis in the default mode network, and it makes you open to thinking differently about yourself.
Memory recovered in hypnosis. There was no end of people in the 1970s who, under hypnosis, would recount being abducted by aliens and having anal probes. So
we went there again, didn't we?
Sorry. So it's one thing to get inside my head and show me as a ballerina. It's another thing to get inside my head and say, tell me what happened in that part of your life that you don't remember. And then we're gonna use that as testimony and put someone in jail because of it.
Well, I mean, there's a very key part of that puzzle that is missing, and that is we now know from research that memory, no matter who you are, if you're a human being, your memory sucks.
Well, no, I can't get that. But I'm saying
no matter who you are.
I guess I'm going a little back in time. There were decades over which people's testimony that comes out of hypnotic trance where they're remembering something was counted as evidence in court. And so I'm just, where does that all stand right now?
There's a law in California that says that a witness or victim who's been hypnotized cannot testify except under certain circumstances.
Wow.
And the circumstances are that it's done by an independent psychiatrist like me, for example, and it's video recorded. So you can see whether people are implanting information. The idea of implanting information goes far beyond hypnosis. There are studies that show that if you show a movie of a car accident and you ask them, did you see the stop sign? When it really, in fact, is a yield sign, about a third of people will say, yeah, I saw the stop sign, when it was not a stop sign.
Right.
I knew John Mack. He was one of my professors when I was training, and I had great regard for him, but I disagree with him completely about this alien abduction stuff. Most of the people who did it were having like dreams as they woke up, and they were in this transition period from waking up in REM sleep to waking up, they start thinking these things. I think I admired and respected John, but I think he was just flat out wrong about this. But let me give you a counterexample. Do you remember the school bus kidnapping in Chowchilla, California? It was this terrible thing where two guys overtook a school bus full of kids, buried the bus in a ditch by some factory, and were trying to hold them for ransom and get money. And for 2 days, the kids were gone. People were totally scared. And when the school bus driver finally got out, they found them, they got them out. And they said, well, who were these guys? He says, I don't know. He said, well, they overtook you in a car. Do you remember the license plate? And he couldn't remember it. And they hypnotized him. And they said, now you're looking at the car overtaking the bus. You can see it in the rearview mirror. And he remembered all of the numbers and letters of the license plate for the first time in the wrong order, but he got them. And that led to the arrest and conviction of these guys. So there are situations that are the exact opposite of what you talk about with alien abductions and John Mack. Memory is associational. You know, it's like you go back to your elementary school and you start having memories of things that you hadn't thought about in 40 years, you know, and the lockers look a funny size and all that. And you remember some friend you'd forgotten about. So you can use hypnosis and you can use just interrogation to get people to recall things that otherwise they're not consciously aware of. Doesn't mean it's always right. It doesn't mean it's always wrong. What I'm asking you to do is narrow your focus and focus more on the experience than some evaluation of the experience and what it means and why you're asking me this and have I ever done this before. You're just immersing yourself in the experience and seeing what happens.
What happens if you do not bring someone out of their hypnotic trance?
Are they a chicken forever?
The worst thing that happened is they'd go to sleep and they'd wake up in their ordinary consciousness. But normally people, after a few minutes, they will just they can bring themselves out. You don't lose control. You actually learn to gain control.
And how does this differ from meditation?
Hypnosis is, it's there to focus on a problem, change the way you and your body react to it, and deal with the problem. So if you're stressed, for example, I'll tell you to first get your body comfortable. When you get stressed, your muscles tighten, your heart rate goes up, you start to sweat, and then you notice that and you think, oh my God, this is really bad, and you feel worse. And it's like a snowball effect. What you do in hypnosis is you can get your body floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. Notice that your body's more comfortable, and then I help people use an imaginary screen to picture the problem on one side and a possible solution on the other. So you can deal with the part of the stressor that you can do something about, which is how your body reacts to it, and then figure out what to do about it. Meditation is different. Meditation is, you're not trying to control or change anything. It's open presence. If you have thoughts or feelings, you just let them flow through you like a storm passing by. You will do a body scan and see how different parts of your body are acting, and you cultivate compassion. They're good things. They're changes in states of consciousness, but hypnosis is more like an antibiotic, and meditation is more like a vitamin. You just do it every day to be better and feel better. Whereas with hypnosis, you use it to deal with a problem.
Got it.
Hypnosis is, for example, highly effective in controlling pain. People, even during surgical procedures, can reduce substantially their pain. We've done randomized clinical trials demonstrating that. 88,000 Americans died of opioid overdoses last year alone. And we are just awash in dangerous drugs, fentanyl-laced pills, and people are dying. Hypnosis has not yet succeeded in killing a single person. The worst thing that happens with hypnosis is it doesn't work. And so I think it's a tragedy that we are not making better use of our own inner resources to deal with problems like stress, pain, insomnia, smoking, learning to eat better.
Or addiction in general.
But we're,
you say smoking, but
addiction in general, yes.
Is benefits temporary, or can they remain as a permanent mental state for patients?
Or do they need ongoing maintenance?
Yeah.
Many people, they make the change. We've had people, for example, who learn to stop smoking. I just tell them, for my body, smoking's a poison. I need my body to live. I owe my body respect and protection. They think of your body as if it were your baby. Would you ever put tar and nicotine-laced hot air in your baby's lungs? Hell no. So learn to respect and protect your body. 1 out of 4 people who use it don't smoke. They stop for at least a year.
You just brought to my recollection of a very good friend of mine who I asked him, hey man, how did you quit cold turkey and you just really quit? Like, you're around people who are smoking. You go out and you have a cocktail and you still don't want a cigarette. And I said, what happened? He said, I did self-hypnosis and it worked.
Whoa.
So, and by the way, what you're talking about, that was one of the exercises is for him, they were talking about, it was like fresh air. Like, think about the air that you breathe and what you want it to be. And it was all about fresh air and his lungs. That was one exercise. Then think about your lungs as, something pristine and untouched, and then polluting it. It was like pretty, involved, but really simple. Mm-hmm. And to this day, Greg Charles does not smoke. Shout out to Greg Charles. To this day, and that was like 14 years ago.
Mm.
What we focus on with hypnosis, you focus on what you're for, not what you're against. You don't tell people, don't think about purple elephants. That's what they'll think about. Instead, you have an exercise that makes you feel good from the moment you start it, because you can be a better parent to your own body, just the way you're talking. I had one woman who, she said, I came into your study. You didn't even want to stop smoking. I've been smoking for 25 years. And she listened to our exercise. The first time she said, I don't like it. She went home that night. She did it again. She lit up a cigarette. She looked at it and said, who needs this? She put it out. She hasn't had a cigarette since. Her friends can't believe it. 25 years she smoked. And she said to me, this is some kind of crazy ass voodoo shit. And I mean that in a good way.
Good. Best compliment ever.
I've been doing this for 50 years now. And I thought at the beginning of my career that if we all just do enough research, we prove that it works, we show how it works using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, that people would come around. And you know what? That hasn't happened. And I think some people are scared of it. But the other thing is big pharma, guys. You know, I don't have money to hire a bunch of ex-cheerleaders to go around to doctors' offices and talk them into using hypnosis.
Interesting.
So the drugs.
And there's a, you know, and I'm a physician. I use medication. There are a time and a place for it. But we tend to undervalue any intervention that is not incision, injection, or ingestion. You know, if it's not real, if you're not using a drug. And that's just wrong. It's just not true. It is real. We can help people live their lives better and far more safely using hypnosis.
And it makes sense for the pain. It just dawned on me that as much as pain is a nerve stimulation firing a synapse, it is also happening in your brain, because people will lose a limb and then still feel excruciating pain in a phantom limb, something that is not there. So at that point,
it's all in the brain.
It's all in the brain, yeah.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that's pain that's not even connected to a nerve. So that is 100% in the brain. So clearly you could be able to do something to your brain to manage your pain without even taking a pill.
You're from England, if I may take from My Fair Lady, the strain in pain lies mainly in the brain. You're exactly right.
Oh, well worked.
I think he's got it.
I do believe he's got it. Splendid.
So there's MRI where you just lay yourself in there, but the fMRI, the person is actively interacting with you, the professional, and you are seeing how their thoughts manifest in whatever are your measuring devices.
Yeah.
Right. You can see blood circulates throughout the brain, but where the brain is more metabolically active, there's a bold signal, blood oxygen level dependent signal that changes. And so you can see where the most activity is in the brain. So what we see is reduced activity in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, which is part of the pain network too. And there's another thing that happens. The prefrontal cortex controls activity in the insula, which is a little island of tissue, it means island, in the middle of the front part of the brain. And it's a mind-body conduit. So the brain can control pain perception by regulating activity in the insula and can more accurately perceive pain signals. And so hypnosis actively controls regions of the brain that have to do with pain and fear. And it's because from an evolutionary point of view, we're pretty pathetic creatures. We're not that big. We're not that strong.
Tell me about it.
If we weren't very sensitive, hypersensitive to being injured, we probably wouldn't have survived. So we need to protect ourselves from injury. But then there comes a point where you got the message, you got the nail out. It's not crushing substernal chest pain. You're not having a heart attack. And so that's the much more typical problem. And that's where hypnosis can help. And I'll tell you, with the example of the phantom limb pain, there's a hypnotic treatment for it. And what you do is you hypnotize people and you have them imagine that they're moving the limb they no longer have. And just feeling that they're controlling it, using those nerve roots, which are still connected to the brain, actually can help relieve the pain that people with phantom limb pain have. The three major networks that are involved in hypnosis are the salience network, turning down activity there, which also involves turning down pain perception. The executive control network, that's mostly the prefrontal cortex, that tells the body what to do. And so some of your activity that involves controlling pain also involves activity in the prefrontal cortex that stimulates activity in the insula. We talked about that with brain-body thing. The third is the default mode network that I mentioned, where you reflect on who you are. I sometimes call it the my fault mode network, where you're just thinking about yourself. The more active the prefrontal cortex is, the less active the default mode network is.
Interesting.
And that's how you suspend your usual presumptions of who you are and what you are when you're active in hypnosis. So those three networks, executive control, salience, and default mode, are the three that are affected by hypnosis.
That you have these powers and you're using them for the greater good. Because if you were the nemesis to a superhero, you would be completely dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, what if you had the ability to hypnotize more than one person and you get a mass hypnosis?
That's what I'm saying.
Going down the villain road.
So we've got stress, pain. There's a nice list here of the successes of hypnosis. What about phobias and other kind of clearly irrational behavior that's exhibited among people? And is that just neurodiversity that we accept, or should that be fixed in some way? And what has hypnosis done about those?
Like, I have an irrational fear of being hypnotized.
Okay.
How do you treat Chuck?
Look up, slowly close your eyes. You're going to love it. Flying phobias, for example. They're, in the airline industry figures they lose 15% of their business to people who are afraid of flying. If you want to have a rational phobia, don't get in a car, because the number of deaths per mile traveled is far greater in automobiles than it is in airplanes. Right. What I tell them is to do three things. I say, I want you to practice this as you prepare for your trip. Look up, close your eyes, get your body comfortable. When you get in the plane, buckle your seatbelt, and then concentrate on, number one, floating with the plane. Most people get tense. They fight the chair. They don't like being buckled in. And I just said, imagine you're in a roller coaster ride at a fair. You're having a good time. You're floating with the plane. Don't fight the plane, float. Secondly, think of the plane as an extension of your body. If you want to get from one place to another, you can walk. If you want to get there faster, you can ride a bicycle. The bicycle is an extension of your body. If you want to get there even faster, you can get in a car. That's an extension of your body. So you're not trapped in a tin can at 35,000 feet. You're using an extension of your body to do what you want to do. And one of the things you did was you chose an airline that has responsible and trained pilots, and he's an extension of your brain.
So it's not Southwest.
Which one of us is going to get sued first? And the third thing is to think about the difference between a possibility and a probability. It's always possible the plane's going to crash, but it isn't probable. We tend to confound the probability of something with how vividly we can picture it.
Ooh,
so you can picture a plane crash. It freaks you out.
Oh, yeah,
that doesn't mean it's likely to happen.
All right, real quick, because we're running out of time, which I can't believe.
Oh, yeah. We just started talking.
We just, this is crazy.
What?
Okay, so we talked about, fears and so forth. Let's go in the opposite direction. Performance.
Yes.
Can you enhance performance through hypnosis?
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
The Stanford women's swimming team coach, there's a fabulous team. A lot of these young women go to the Olympics. Coach discovered that they were swimming faster in practice than they were in meets. And you would think it would be the opposite. And it turned out when we talked to them, in practice, they were just concentrating on relating to their body, on making their muscles work in coordination as well as they could. When they're in the meet, they're thinking about the girls on either side and sort of competing with them. Now, swimming isn't a contact sport. It doesn't matter what the other swimmers are doing. What matters is what you're doing. Not in golf, for example. Tiger Woods has used hypnosis since he was 14. Wow. He hypnotized himself every day when he was playing.
He became the ball.
Yeah.
Good reference.
Be the ball.
Be the ball.
Be the ball.
Yes. No, it's got to be a smooth swing. You don't want to think about anything except what you need to do, connect with the ball. So these girls swam faster in meets once they disciplined themselves to practice self-hypnosis and just focus on their relationship with their own body. So there are a number of, Michael Jordan used hypnosis to train. He was fairly good at basketball.
Was he any good?
He's not bad.
All right. Pleasure. All good.
Right. That's another wrap. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson for Startalk Special Edition.
And you're out of the room.